Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first ever live Leadership Excellence series. For those of you who are Leadership Excellence participants, thank you very much for being here. For those of you who are not familiar with the Leadership Excellence series, HFTP started an educational leadership series this year for the first time, a 12-month program that gets together 9 times, 2 times in person, includes information exchange, idea exchange between the leadership members and their respective companies, includes a book series, and then obviously our live meeting here today, and then the second live meeting at HFTP's annual convention. So it gives you a little background about why we're here and why the Leadership Excellence series. Thank you all for being here. I will introduce later in more detail Harris Rosen, President, CEO of Rosen Hotels and Resorts, and Art Berger, my co-leadership chair on the Leadership Excellence series. So already said welcome, thank you. Before I introduce Harris formally, I wanted to tell you a little bit about Rosen Hotels and Resorts. Rosen Hotels just celebrated its 48th anniversary on June 24th. The company boasts 7 hotels, 6,338 guest rooms and suites, and over 1 million square feet of convention space. In addition to our hotel holdings, we operate a technology company called Millennium Technology Group, an insurance company, Provinsure Incorporated, and a medical center specifically for our associates, the Rosen Medical Center, a place for healing and wellness. Now an introduction for Mr. Rosen. Innovative, generous, and a giant in the hospitality industry and the Orlando community. Harris Rosen almost needs no introduction as the founder, president, and COO of Rosen Hotels and Resorts. Rosen took a chance on one hotel in the early 1970s, a chance on himself, and it paid off. Now, the Rosen name stands tall on 7 Orlando hotels, a foundation to benefit children in underserved communities. He's a warrior taking cancer head on and even helps people in other countries hit hard by disasters. He started the Tangelo Park program, the Paramore program, which provides free preschool to children in the ages 2, 3, and 4. And when those students graduate high school, college and vocational school scholarships are theirs, covering everything from tuition, books, room, and board. After the onset of the pandemic, Mr. Rosen took over the Rosen Aquatic and Fitness Center, a nonprofit aquatic facility in our community that for many years was a YMCA. He's donated millions of dollars to take on and destroy brain cancer, specifically helping create a new world-class neo-oncology facility, providing state-of-the-art equipment and workspace to the very best cancer doctors and researchers. He created Rosen Care, an innovative, award-winning insurance plan that not only gives associates and their families comprehensive coverage, but pays 90% of all their medications. He established the Rosen Medical Center, which offers over 3,000 associates and their dependents top-notch medical care and wellness on site. As many of you know, he is a force behind the nation's best hospitality college, which is growing and getting better every day, the Rosen College of Hospitality Management at the University of Central Florida. All of this and so much more, please welcome Mr. Harris Rosen. Thank you for being here. So we'll do a little question and answer session. And the first question that I'll ask you, Mr. Rosen, is did hospitality find you, or did you find hospitality?
Well, I think the answer is that I probably found it.
Okay.
But we're going way back. My dad, first of all, my dad's family came from Ukraine. My mom's family came from Austria-Hungary. They found each other on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. where so many immigrants came from Italy and from Ireland and from Eastern Europe. And Ellis Island, Dad's name changed from Rosenufsky to Rosen. Mom's name was shortened from Rosenhouse to Rosen. So Rosen married Rosen. And within a relatively short period of time, I was born. And about 4 years later, my brother was born. We grew up at the Lower East Side between the East River, Little Italy, the Bowery, and Chinatown. Not exactly a gated community. And that's where I lived until I went to high school and graduated from high school. But when I was in my 11th or 12th year, my dad got a hold of me and said, "Harris, would you like to earn some money?" And of course I said yes. He said, "Come to my office." His office was at the Waldorf Astoria. He was a sign painter there. But recently he had convinced the catering department that he could do the place cards quite nicely compared to printed names. And so they said, "Okay, Jack, we'll give it a try." He called me to his office at the Waldorf. And he said, "I have a job opportunity for you." And I said, "Sure, Dad, what's that?" And he explained to me that he would do the place cards in pencil first, and then crow quill pen with India ink. He then would erase the pencil, fold the card, put it in a shoebox in alphabetical sequence, and that was it. I said, "What do I have to do, Dad?" He said, "You have to do what I just explained. Erase the pencil, fold the card, put it in alphabetical order in a shoebox." I said, "How much will you pay me?" "A penny a card." I said, "Dad, I'm going to schlep all the way over here to make 2 or 3 cents and miss playing stickball, punchball, Ringalivio, Johnny and Napoli with my friends?" He said, "No. Sometimes I have 200 or 300 cards to do." I said, 2 or 300? That's $2 or $3. He said, "Yeah." I said, "Dad, do you know how many chunky bars, how many egg creams, how many Maltons, how many Spaldings I can buy for that?" He said, "Yes." I said, "I'm hired." So we started, and it was fun. We would put all of the cards in the shoebox in alphabetical sequence. And then he and I would take the box either upstairs or downstairs to the appropriate ballroom, where we would hand the box to the person in charge, a head waiter, and then we would leave. In the elevator, we would meet some very interesting people. We met Joe DiMaggio in the elevator, one of the great baseball players. Oh, we met Cardinal Spellman, a Catholic priest. And one day, we walk into the elevator, and there was a very tall, distinguished gentleman with the most beautiful blonde lady I had ever seen in my life. Now, I was about 10 or 11 years old, and I whispered to Dad, "Dad, can you introduce me?" He said, "Of course." But he introduced me to the gentleman first. He said, "I'd like you to meet Ambassador Joseph Kennedy." Didn't mean anything to me. And the young lady, Marilyn Monroe. I didn't realize the connection that Marilyn had to the Kennedy boys until later. But Marilyn came over to me, now this is an elevator, and she hugged me. I'm telling you the God's honest truth. If I close my eyes, I can feel that hug. That hug actually changed my life, and I'll tell you why. So time goes on, I'm working with Dad, playing with my friends. Went to Music and Art High School. I inherited some of my dad's artistic ability. And we thought Harris was going to Fine Arts College. I was accepted to Pratt, to Cooper Union, Carnegie Tech, but I wasn't happy. I said, "Dad, I don't know if I really have enough talent to be successful in fine arts." And I kept thinking of Marilyn. No way when I'm painting am I going to bump into a beautiful lady in an elevator. I said, "Dad, would it be okay if I applied to hotel management school?" And he said, "Of course." Thank God he didn't ask me why. And somehow, a miracle, I was accepted to Cornell University, the School of Hotel Management. And that's where I went for 4 years. Vietnam was heating up. I went through ROTC, graduated in 4 years, and received my second lieutenant bars, and then was shipped overseas. So that's my story about Marilyn Monroe having an influence on my life, Jim.
So how did you end up in Orlando?
Oh. Do these folks have several hours?
Well, we'll tell the summarized and concluded version.
Well, I graduated from Cornell in 4 years, went overseas, spent a year in Korea and 2 years in Germany. Left the military and got a job at the Waldorf Astoria. And from there, I was asked to join the Hilton management team, management training team, which I did. I must have been to 5 or 6 hotels in various capacities. And wound up in Pittsburgh at the Hilton. Got to know a gentleman who was one of the most important realtors in Pittsburgh. Handled some of his events, and he was very pleased with the way I handled them. And he said, Harris, I'm building a resort in Mexico. Would you like to join me there? And I said, oh my God, of course. So he flew me to Acapulco, and he offered me the job as general manager of Tres Vidas on La Playa. And that's where I went. I left Hilton. I was there for a year, and a new president was elected in Mexico. And one of the things he did initially was to change the law that non-Mexican nationals would not be able to own more than 49% of any real property. So my boss had to sell 51% of his hotel, and when he did, a Mexican company took over and I was fired. I wound up in California, was very depressed, picked up the paper and read that Disney was planning on doing a very large enterprise in Orlando. Well, I was in California, so I went to Burbank, where Disney headquarters was. And I interviewed, and they liked my resume. And they said, Harris, you go back to New York, where we're doing the formal interviews, and if you're hired, you'll come back to California and start work with us. Well, I went to New York, was interviewed, and was hired. I went back to California and started working with Disney. Within a relatively short period of time, I went to Orlando and started working for Disney. I enjoyed the work there very much. I remember they called a bunch of us together for a meeting. They weren't able to find someone to work as Winnie the Pooh on Sundays. I volunteered. So I worked 5.5 days in my job in hotel planning, and then worked Sundays as Winnie the Pooh. I thought I did a wonderful job. I certainly had demonstrated how dedicated I was, and was called in after I'd been there for 2 years, after Disney opened. By my boss's boss. And I said, wow, I'm going to get a nice promotion and a nice raise. The conversation started off okay. Harris, you've done a nice job for us. And then the word but.
There's always a but.
What does but have to do with it? But we don't think you'll ever be a Disney employee. Well, why? You just don't dress properly. You don't talk properly. You don't follow instructions properly. I said, no, I know what the real reason is. My ears are too small. See, that's the kind of bullshit we're talking about. You don't respect the mouse. I said, I'm sorry. He said, here's $500, you're fired. I didn't know what I was going to do. There was an oil embargo in 1974. And this genius thought it would be appropriate to buy a hotel. There wasn't a hotel that was profitable during those times. But I found a little motel, went into the lobby, asked if the owner was there, and they said, yes, he's here. I said, I wonder if I could meet with him. I was told, of course. I sat down in the lobby, and a gentleman came out, and he said, hi, I understand you wanted to see me. And I said, yes, sir, my name is Harris Rosen. He said, my name is Jim Morgan. He said, I own the hotel. I said, I'm looking to buy a hotel. He stepped towards me, put his arms around me, and hugged me so tight I thought he would break a bone in my rib. He said, let's go back to my office and talk. We spoke. He said, Harris, I'm inviting the lenders to visit with you. I think you'd be a great owner. 2 weeks later, he invited me to his office, and I met the lender, I think Continental Bank of Philadelphia. He was very impressed with my resume. He said, I understand you want to buy the hotel. I said, yes. He said, how much money do you have in the bank? I said, sir, I have $20,000. He said, fine. $20,000 down, and you assume a mortgage. I had no idea what assuming a mortgage meant. I said, we have a deal? I shook hands. 2 weeks later, I signed the contract. My attorney looked at it, he said, do you know what you just signed? I said, yes, $20,000. He said, no, the mortgage is $2 million. I said, what do I have to do? You have to pay the mortgage. When? Every month you pay a little bit. Will I be able to do that? He said, that's up to you. Oh my God, I was so scared. But I had an idea. People couldn't buy gas, but buses were buying gas. Gas stations loved the buses. Buses were coming to Orlando. I said, I've got to make a deal with buses in New York, in Philadelphia, and in New Jersey. How was I going to get there? I had no money. I had a thumb. So I hitchhiked from Orlando to New York. And I met with the 3 largest motor coach company owners. I had little cards made with my name on it. I gave them each a card and said, you write down a room rate that I will honor for 3 years. What kind of rate? Whatever rate you want. Whatever rate we want? Yes, sir. I had that done in New York. They said, where are you headed next? I said, New Jersey, we'll drive you there. I did the same thing there. After I met with Vince, he said, where are you headed? I said, to Massachusetts. I'll drive you there. His bus drove me there. When I was leaving Massachusetts, I was asked, how are you getting back to Orlando? No, we'll find someone who's driving to Florida. They found a couple that headed to Miami. They dropped me off in Orlando. I kept the cards. The highest rate was $7.50 a night for 3 years. But the buses started to roll in. It was crazy. So even though I was only making $7.50, I was selling food and beverage. and the hotel was running full. 256 rooms full almost every single night. 9 months went by and I was paying my debt. I was so happy. I was visited by 2 gentlemen who said, "Are you Rosen?" I said, "Yes." "Are you the owner?" I said, "Yes." "We own the hotel down the street, the Solage. It's bankrupt now. We're the lenders. Would you like to own that also?" I said, "No, I've got my hands full." "Do us a favor, Harris. Make us an offer." I said, "Okay." I made them an offer. I would manage the hotel for 5 years. They would pay me a management fee. The management fee would be used to buy the hotel. I wouldn't accept a penny of it. They would match the management fee. And if I had generated enough revenue for them, because they got the profits, and my contribution, within 5 years, I would own the hotel debt-free. At the end of 4.5 years, I owned the hotel. Within 5 years, I owned 2 hotels. One of them without any debt at all. The other running very high occupancies, so high that I kept adding rooms until I grew from 256 rooms to 728. That's the beginning of Rosen Hotels and Resorts. Today we have close to 6,500 rooms. And guess what? We are completely debt-free. What saved us during COVID was the fact that we had no debt. During COVID, we learned how difficult things could really be. And we thank God for watching over us. After I'd been at what was then a Quality Inn for about 16 years, I lived in the hotel. My office was in the hotel. I met a young lady at one of the fitness facilities, was intrigued with how beautifully she was able to stretch. We fell in love, and I proposed marriage. I was near 50, and she was in her 20s. We both wanted to have a large family. She said, "Harris, where are we going to live?" I said, "Well, right here. I have a nice little apartment." She said, "Absolutely not." "Why?" "If you don't understand, I'm not going to explain it to you." So I rented a little condo. Because I was old and we wanted to have a family, in 3 years we had 3 children. I then said, "Time out. Sweetie, I know we want to have at least one more, but I'm not getting any sleep at night, and I now have 4 hotels, and I'm going crazy." She said, "Well, wait a year." We waited a year and had number 4. And that's how Rosen Hotels got started.
So we amass all of these hotels. We have very satisfied guests. What is the secret sauce in your mind to keeping the company culture together and promoting the service that we promote?
Well, of course, hotels are a service industry. And the key is to have happy associates. And so I have worked diligently to do whatever we can to keep our associates happy. We have our own medical center. If you work for me, you visit the medical center. If you're in the hospital, the most you pay is $750 twice in a year. After that, you don't pay anything. One of our associates had a little baby born prematurely. She was in the hospital with her baby for a long time, and the bill was $1,041,000. I know that because I paid it. She paid $750. If you have a prescription and you go to Walmart, it's free 90% of the time. If you've been with me for 3 years and you have children in college, I'll pay their tuition. We have a program called Shares of Success based on longevity. The longer you've been with us, the more you receive. I think our longevity is something rather unusual. We have many, many, many people who have been with us for 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 years. We just celebrated our 48th anniversary. And so treating people the way I would like to be treated, I think, is the key. Birthdays, who calls to wish people a happy birthday? Rosen does. It's crazy, isn't it? Hi, this is Mr. Rosen. I'm calling to say happy birthday. We're different. I don't disparage the big guys. I respect them tremendously. But little guys have to be different, and we are different. And we continue to anticipate building additions to our properties, but only when we have enough cash in the bank to do that.
Thank you. Art, I'm monopolizing the conversation. Do you want to ask a couple questions?
Thank you very much, Jim. And thank you, Harris, for, on behalf of HFTP, on behalf of HITEC, and on behalf of the LES program that Jim and I, co-chair, for giving us your time today. And thank you for what you do to the industry. I mean, you have, developed just an incredible reputation throughout the country. For myself, really? I feel honored to be up here with you. And there's not an awful lot of people in the industry that can say that they've been in it for 50 years, all right? Next month, I will be 50.
48 years. Yeah.
48. And, for me, throughout my career of working with 10 different hotel companies, I've had the opportunity to work with well over 50 different owners. And the owners that I have connected with throughout my career, your name comes up more than you can imagine.
Seriously?
The respect that this industry has for you.
I never would have
So thank you for everything that you do. It's fantastic, and again, to have you here, right now is so outstanding. Listening to Jim talk about all the philanthropic, endeavors that you have, driven, for your company and for the thousands of associates that you've got, Tell us, a little bit, what is it that motivates you to support the community the way that you do?
That's a great question. Growing up on New York City's Lower East Side, the question is, why do I do what I do philanthropically? My brother and I walked to the library, which was right there in the Bowery. Not a very pleasant place, but Ron and I were used to it and felt comfortable walking there. Something unusual happened one day. A tour bus came by. And Ron and I looked at each other and said, why would a tour bus visit the Bowery? There's nothing really pleasant to see here. We waited, the people got off the bus. A couple of very nicely dressed women got off. And they looked around and they said, so this is how they live? So this is how they live. But Ron and I said, we live here. Not in the Bowery, but 2 blocks away. So we were confused. We went home and Mom was there and we explained the situation to Mom. We lived on the 7th floor of an apartment building. If anyone here is staying at Shingle Creek, they can take a look at 18 Monroe, which is our deli, and there's a photograph of where I lived. And we said, Mom, why would they talk the way they did about, so this is how they live? We're comfortable. We're playing punchball and stickball and Ringalivio and Johnny and the Pony and basketball and baseball every day. We're having fun. And she said, well, come on, guys, sit down and let me tell you. And she shared with us about all of the unfortunate people who live in the Bowery, and that some people are not privy to that. They're not used to seeing that. We've gotten used to it because Chinatown was right there and Little Italy was right there. It didn't surprise us to see people on the ground with bottles nearby. And so she said, not everyone lives here, guys. So be prepared for others who might come for visit to also say weird things about our neighborhood. So that was a lesson learned, that not everyone is fortunate. Not everyone lives in a nice neighborhood. Not everyone lives in a beautiful house. But I think it was a wonderful advantage for me growing up where I did, because now I understand so clearly what it's like to be someone not quite so fortunate. And about 30 years ago, sitting at my desk, I heard a voice. The voice said, Harris, it's time for you now to offer a helping hand to those in need. I have blessed you beyond anything you have ever imagined. And now, help others. I called a couple of friends of mine, and the 3 of us, an early childhood expert, a principal of a high school, put together what is now the Tangelo Park Paramore Eatonville program. Free preschool for all the youngsters in the underserved community. Work with them, work with their parents, make sure that they graduate from high school. High school graduation rates have gone from 40% to 100%.
Oh my.
And then offer them completely free college.
Wow.
community college or trade school. So when they leave, they don't owe a penny. And we started that program 30 years ago in Tangelo Park and did it again in Paramore. And now others are replicating our program here in Orlando, in Eatonville, and at Fort Wayne, Indiana. But all of the philanthropic work we do is predicated with me remembering the Bowery and how blessed I have been.
That's fantastic. I have to say, it's inspiring also to hear that story, and I think that with everything that you've done, I'm sure that there are hundreds of former employees as well as others that have been inspired by you and everything that you've done. I know for myself, if I would have started my hotel career 50 years ago, I'm sure that you would have been one of my inspirations as well. So speaking of inspiration then, who has inspired you?
Well, of course, my dad did. He worked so hard. In fact, at the Rosen Plaza Hotel, there's a restaurant called Jack's Place.
Yes.
Dad did caricatures. That was his hobby. And because at the Waldorf, so many famous people would come and visit, his friends at the Waldorf would let Dad know who was coming. He would do a caricature and then make sure that it was autographed.
Oh my.
So he has probably one of the finest autograph caricature collections in America. And at Jack's Place, all of his caricatures are on the wall.
How neat.
And so we're so proud of that. And I think Dad would be so proud that he's being remembered that way. And so when I was growing up in New York in the little apartment house we lived, all those Dad's caricatures were there. He had so many of them, and they just stacked them up in the closet. But now, what a wonderful opportunity we've had to use them. They're just so wonderful and so inspirational. Dad passed away before Mom did. Mom came to visit, and she was so overwhelmed at what her son had accomplished. I asked her to come and visit me at Rosen Plaza, and we brought her over there. And I said, "Can I show you a restaurant that is named after Dad?" She never did walk inside. It was too emotional for her. But it's so nice. And we're different because we name things after the Rosen family members. Jack's Place, of course. My mom was a redhead. We've got Reds. My two granddaddies from Eastern Europe. We've named a bar after Harry, and Sam and Bubby, his wife, a beautiful little restaurant. So when you walk at a Rosen property, you'll see strange names. 18 Monroe, which is where I grew up. That's the name of our deli. And so it is different. And people thought I was crazy calling a bar Sam and Bubby's. What's Bubby? Bubby is the Jewish name for grandma. Interesting. But nobody knows. Yeah, that's fine. And things have worked out very nicely. And I feel very comfortable knowing that I'm remembering my family who meant so much to me.
That's beautiful, and it's so, not only is your history there so beautiful, but the fact that you've been able to incorporate your entire family permanently into all of these properties. Very beautiful.
It is beautiful, and I know it's different, but we're different as a company, and we're not different just to be different. We are different.
Great.
And we're very proud of that.
Very good. You should be. Jim?
So tell us a little bit how you come up with these harebrained ideas and make them work, and the effort that it takes to form a program like Rosen Care or the Tangelo Park program and keep them going and generating
Yeah,
them.
and Jim, that's really a good question, because I don't have any special means. I mean, I think the way everyone thinks, but I'm not afraid to think differently about things. And so if I do, I don't get nervous about it. I try to put my arms around it and think about it and wonder, can we make it work? And Rosen Care is a perfect example of that. About 30 years ago, wanting desperately to lower our healthcare costs, I worked diligently to make that happen, and it worked. I called the insurance company, and they said we would have your numbers pretty soon. I said, I can't wait. I got my bill, and my insurance rates went up by 25%. And I called. There's a mistake, because we worked diligently and we lowered our healthcare costs by about 30%, yet there's an increase in my healthcare costs. And the response was, let me check. He said, oh, it's because of the group that you're in. I said, no, I'm an independent little hotel guy. I'm not part of a group. He said, no, we put you in a group. I said, I don't want to be in a group. You don't have any choice. Yes, my choice is not to do it. What do you mean? I'm gone. One of the dumbest things I ever did in my life. I had no insurance company. I had no medical center. I had no affiliation with any hospitals, any doctors. What in God's name have I just done? I said, take a deep breath. Number one, let's get a clinic. The accounting office needed more space.
We got kicked out.
And we created a beautiful little clinic there, hired a nurse practitioner, a physician, and an admin, and we were in business. What about insurance? Well, let's start our own insurance company. We did, Provinsure. Now, one of the finest insurance companies here in Orlando. We had insurance, we had our medical center. What about hospitals? Let's talk to them. We're not afraid to talk. We spoke to the hospitals and made a deal with them. What about all of the other physicians? We'll talk to them. We did the same thing. And before long, we had a program we called Rosen Care. Rosen Care. We controlled our own destiny. Wow. What impact would that have on our healthcare costs? At the end of the first year, we're on the cover of Florida Trend magazine. Why? We had cut our healthcare costs by 50%. From about $1,400 per covered life to $700 per covered life. Since we started our program, if you compare our cost per covered life with the national average cost per covered life, we have saved our little company over $500 million. I won't name the big company that came to visit us, well known here in Central Florida. But they came to visit, they had heard about Rosen Care. We showed them our little medical center. We explained to them what we had done. And they said, boy, that's intriguing. We're going to California to talk to the boss and see if we can explain to him what it is that you've done and replicate it. They said, we'll call you when we get back. I never got a phone call. I called them. Are you guys okay? No. What's wrong? I won't name the person, but he said, are you guys crazy? Are you guys crazy? You want us to have our own wellness program, our own healthcare program for all of our employees? Do you know how many malpractice lawsuits we will have to contend with? Forget about it. Had this large corporation done what I expected them to do, that is replicate the program, they would have saved over the same period of time about $2.5 billion. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So we continue to chug along.
Yep, very good.
And do the best we can. Look, yes, we've had crazy ideas. Have they all worked? No. But we don't give up.
We do on occasion get that early morning phone call that says, Jim, I had a dream. And it snowballs from there.
Yes, look, 48 years, we've been blessed beyond anything I ever imagined. COVID came and it was so incredibly difficult to deal with. But we're here. We survived. And we now know that really awful things can happen. This is interesting, though. I've had conversations with some folks in the public sector who've heard about Rosen Care, and they actually came to visit with us and shop us. But never, ever, ever did they have the courage to try to replicate the program. We estimated that if the public sector and the private sector and all of the employees in both sectors, about 250 million working, if they all had a Rosen Care program, the United States of America would save every year close to $2 trillion on health care. But it won't ever happen. It's so sad. So you've got me babbling now.
So, well, I can say that we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here.
Sure.
From the leadership excellence perspective, if you were to leave this room with one professional thought or idea to take home with everyone, what would that be? What would you say is a phrase to go by?
Don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. And God bless you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. We truly appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of HITEC. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Well done.